So fantastic. Welcome along, everybody. Heather was going to do a fantastic introduction there, welcoming you all to this really exciting week where everybody's sort of focusing in on supporting people with their finances and really making a difference to people's lives. My name's Irene McIntosh. I'm from an organisation called Mhor Collective. We're based in Scotland, though cover the UK and excitingly globally. We are a global organisation doing work in Canada and Portugal and all over the shop. We're a single issue organisation. All we think about is digital inclusion. And we can think about that in a range of different contexts. Today, we're going to have a chat about how digital inclusion and financial inclusion are kind of hand in hand. I'm joined on the call by my colleague Shona. Do you want to introduce yourself, ma'am, with a little bit of housekeeping?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I will be sitting alongside Irene this afternoon. I will be sort of taking control of the chat panel, so if you have any issues, I'll do my best to pick that up from there. We have another colleague from More Hazel is also on the call, so between myself and Hazel, we'll hopefully be able to pick up any issues. Irene will go through quite a few resources as we go through the session, which again, I will pop the links into the chat for anyone that likes to look as they go, but we will send on all the details to Heather and she will distribute all the links and resources that we talk about afterwards. So don't feel you need to worry about taking notes of anything. We will get that out to you afterwards.
And this isn't a static presentation, so we're going to be using Mentimeter, which you can either join if you're using a mobile phone, you can join using the little QR code, or you can click on the link that Shona and Hazel will be putting in the chat panel there. And that's just because it's a big call, and I actually genuinely want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what you're thinking about this as we go through it. So you can imagine it like a sort of interactive whiteboard space, and it allows us to sort of think about what you're all saying while you're joining in. Also helps keep everybody awake. So our first question, just to check that our slides are working, is who's here? What organisation are you from? And what is your favourite app or website? So you can join into Mentimeter using either the what do you call it, QR code there, or you can follow the link that the team have put in the chat for you. And if all of that is feeling overwhelming, if all of that is just too much, it is okay just to sort of watch and participate that way. And it's okay to just use the Zoom chat panel if need be. I'm starting to see people coming in. Shona has mentioned her banking app. What we're seeing, unsurprisingly, across the UK and again globally, is the importance of digital banking to very many people, but it's also one of the most challenging spaces to get people to engage with. So people that have low levels of digital skills and confidence, much less likely to use online banking because they're worried about that. So we're seeing lots of things about Facebook coming in. That bit of Twitter, Hazel, old school co-pilot, special mention there for AI and the life-changing sort of application of AI. It really can make a huge difference to people in lots of ways. Nutrition apps, a bit of Spotify. I love it. Lucille's coming in with a nice, comfortable Google. YouTube, Vinted. Amy's making a little bit of money on the side there, selling bits and bobs on Vinted, or maybe just buying. No judgment here. No judgment here. Sam's coming up with Toggle. Don't know what that is, but I'm going to be Googling that afterwards. Camille, Google is my best friend, as is Amazon. Charlotte, welcome along from University of St Andrews, recommending YouTube to us all. Then we've got Roger from the Jobs and Benefits Office. He's not noted what their favourite app or website is, but welcome along, benefits team. Messenger, Kindle app, and we've got Rachel, Google. I love it. Some sport coming in there. So I think what I'm seeing as well, Strava. So what I'm seeing from the content here is that people are using digital in all manners of ways in their lives. They're using digital to connect with family, friends, and loved ones. They're using digital to promote their own health and well-being, whether that's physical activity or emotional activity. We've also got nutritional there. People accessing the education, people accessing employment. Because we're a single issue organisation, you could put me in front of a room of anyone and I could explain how digital inclusion is everybody's responsibility. And it's because of these things that impacts on all of our lives. So when we're talking about digital inclusion, we're never just talking about how it intersects with one thing. We're really focusing on how it can support the whole person in a whole range of different ways. So we'll totally be delighted to be chatting to you today about how digital exclusion impacts on financial well-being, so how those things are kind of interlinked. Talking about the drivers of poverty and what help is out there, and also, I guess, how digital inequality impacts on those drivers, how it's part of the problem, as well as digital inclusion being part of the solution. We're going to sort of show you and share resources for organisations and support that's out there for helping people experiencing data poverty, and also thinking about how digital skills, digital understanding are also part of empowering people, not just with their money, but in general. And we're going to keep skating around apps and resources to help. For those of you that are a bit liberty brains like me and like to do two different things at one time, the apps and websites will be in the chat panel, so you can click on them and explore them, but we'll be sending them afterwards for you. So digital inequality, the resources that we have here, I think came from Joseph Roundtree, sorry, the statistics came from Joseph Roundtree Foundation, but one of the team will share the link to the whole report for you. But what we're seeing is that 83% of adults have reported an increase in their cost of living over recent years. 1 in 4 children within the Scottish context are living in poverty. And to me, that is a shameful situation that we're facing in Scotland, that 1 in 4 of our kids are living in households where poverty is their everyday reality, and digital is part of that. 68% of children living in poverty and in a household where at least one person is employed. So poverty is no longer, or probably I would argue has never only been about employment. There's lots of ways that people can find themselves in poverty, and that includes in work poverty. So getting people into work is only part of the solution there. 36% of the workforce lack the digital skills for work. And I'd just like you to hold in your head a little minute about whether or not you can think of a single job that doesn't require digital skills. So if we know that 36% of the workforce don't have digital skills for work, and yet almost every single job requires digital skills, then where are we there really? And what does that really look like for people? So if you work on the bins, for instance, if you're doing that essential work, you may be moving bins physically, but you also have to engage with digital health, health and safety online, your online training, your pay slips. Every aspect of a person's employment will have a digital level to it. What we know and what a lot of the research shows us is that very many people in the UK have not accessed their digital pay slips for the whole time that they've been in employment. And how on earth can we support people with financial inclusion and financial literacy if they can't even see their own pay slips? But very few employers are actively helping people to see their pay slips. So there's also a challenge there. Employers aren't necessarily offering digital skills in that holistic way. They might be saying, get this job done, but they're not necessarily focused on the individual. People without digital skills are more likely to be older, but definitely not exclusively. This is categorically not a problem with older people, but it is a problem to do with wider inequalities. So poverty, for instance, if you are entitled to claim universal credit, you are less likely to have the digital skills or the access or the opportunity to be able to claim universal credit through the digital only platform. So to me, straight up pathway into poverty. You're less likely to have engaged with education, so probably you might have had those challenges in the background, more likely to have an additional support need. And so the factors, the wider sort of social factors that are also contributing to why people find themselves in employment, in poverty, sorry, is that income from employment might not match our household needs anymore. There's a lot of people working in gig economy type jobs, so they just go and do the one job for a wee while. And the internet facilitates a lot of that. Like, come and just do this quick thing and get that. Or insufficient hours. We're seeing an increase in the cost of living. Income from social security and benefits in kind might not match what people need. But also in the work that we do, we see the massive impact of systemic inequality, systemic poverty, generational poverty. If you're growing up and your family members have grown up in specific areas, then you are more likely to have inherited poverty almost. So trying to get out of that is so difficult. And it's all multi-layered. So if you are experiencing poverty, you're also almost certainly impacted by health inequality, by wider social inequalities, and it's all tied up. And digital inequality and digital inclusion and exclusion is both a pathway into poverty. So if we think about digital inequality contributes to poverty as well as being a pathway out of poverty. So it's integral that we see digital inclusion as part of financial inclusion work. I am going to be brave and suggest that we pop people into some breakout rooms for a little while. Now, what I would like you to do is in your breakout rooms, have a conversation about this topic here. For the next wee while, around about 10 minutes, have a chat about how the internet impacts on people experiencing poverty. What do you see? What do you think that looks like? Where is that pushing on people and what do you see? So Shauna's opening the breakout rooms now. I can tell by her concentrating face. You'll get a little invitation to join the breakout rooms. And if you want to head out, and if somebody in each room can add the group thoughts onto the slides, we'll be able to see that when we all come back together.
Yep, the rooms have just been created and open.
So the question annoyingly says, does the internet impact on people experiencing poverty? But I should have been asking a very Scottish how. How though? How does the internet impact on people experiencing poverty? But you all absolutely got that. And what you are clearly reflecting is the impacts on people in so many different ways. It impacts on our ability to get and secure a job. It impacts on our employability. It impacts on families and leads to greater social exclusion. So homework for the kids, somebody's picked out. If you're a child in a household impacted by systemic poverty, then how do you do your homework if your teacher sets digital homework? And that is increasingly the case. How does your mum join into the class dojo if that's what's happening? And there's such stigmatization attached to it that it's really important to think about, especially for children and young people. We do an awful lot of work with young people that are care experienced, and they will often not disclose that they are living in digital poverty because of the stigmatization of that for young people. There's a really interesting piece of work for those of you who are interested called the Minimum Digital Living Standard, and that looks at what we mean by a sort of like a well-rounded digital life for people, and that it's about more than just giving people the bare minimum that they need. People might miss out on finding resources that can both improve their financial situation, but just improve their opportunities really more generally. Health as well. So if somebody is experiencing financial hardship, they're also likely to be experiencing sort of health issues, and it could even be to do with mental health, and digital unlocks all of this. And then some of you are thinking about really practical stuff like benefits and things like that. So it really impacts significantly on people. Without digital access and the digital skills, as well as that access, people can't access benefit systems or claim the benefits that they're entitled to. So for me, I really feel challenged by the benefit system. When it was built, there was a recognition at that particular point as they moved to digital first for the benefit system that a significant amount of benefits claimants wouldn't be able to access their benefits then. So that becomes a problem for me. People can't access the majority of job adverts. People can't access cheaper online services. There's a figure usually attached to that, right about £700, is the amount of money that people can save per year if they have digital skills. And that's in the sort of Good Things Foundation. And what that means is that if I am lucky enough to have a roof over my head, lucky enough to have a stable job and be able to manage my money, I'm more likely to have that £700 in my account than somebody teetering on the edge of homelessness that doesn't have that skills, doesn't have that opportunity. So that seems to me, again, it's a way of those of us who are lucky to have, then things get better for us, but not for all of us. So it creates this deep-seated inequality. And people can't find or access the support service they need. So it becomes massively disempowering for people. None of us want to ask for help. The internet allows us to find help for ourselves. So that is really important. Financial barriers to digital access. So we sort of start thinking about digital inclusion in a sort of three-pronged, like a sort of wobbly stool, I guess, that people need access and devices, and they need skills and understanding, and they need support to do all of those things. So the first barriers that people encounter is data poverty and access to an appropriate device. So we really want to start thinking about how can we get people the connectivity they need. The first thing to consider really is something called social tariffs. So social tariffs you may or may not be familiar with. It's special prices offered to people who are on low incomes or in specific categories in receipt of benefits or pension credit. And they are designed by the majority of main providers so that people have access to broadband at an affordable price. And it's in recognition of data poverty. So Ofcom here has a big, massive list of all the social tariffs providers. Again, Shona and Hazel will be firing that into the chat panel for you. And you can see that some of them are location-based. One thing to think about if you are seeking to find a social tariff for someone is to just double check that it doesn't do a credit check. So a lot of these require credit checks. I've pulled up Smarty, not to recommend Smarty as a provider, but to give an example of one that does not use a credit check, because any of us who have experienced poverty and hardship knows that we are more likely, if we're in financial hardship, to fail a credit check. So it's just something to think about. So social broadband is there to provide support for people that need it and ease that financial burden a little bit. And it is there for people who meet certain criteria. Unfortunately, there's not a universal application process for that, and each person has to be supported into social broadband in one specific, like in a specific way, and give evidence which varies. And you can also get social tariffs with a SIM, but I'm going to talk a bit more about SIMs in a wee minute. So the benefits of that is it gives cheaper access and more sustainable access, more ongoing than the variabilities of SIM cards. And it allows budget control, so the price is fixed and won't go up. And you can leave the tariff at any time without a fee. Shona, can you remember the statistic off the top of your head? This is a bit where she goes, no, what you bother me for? The number of people that are entitled to claim, that don't claim social tariffs.
Oh, no, I'm going to lie if I say, but it's really high. Like,
It's
I want to say
really
like
high.
90%. Like,
Yes,
it's
I
ridiculously
think
high.
I think it's something round about that 90% of people that are entitled to claim social tariffs. It's vaguely rounds about that ballpark. do not know about them and can't claim them. There are challenges though. Sometimes the speeds can be a wee bit slower or the data limited in a little bit. The process can be difficult getting necessary evidence. If it's an online process, that can exclude people immediately. I can notice that lots of folk are asking questions, which the team will address what they can in the chat panel there. So there's support out there for social tariffs. I've already shown Ofcom and Citizens Advice have more information there as well. I also wanted to start touching into some additional support that's out there for people. There's the National Data Bank and the National Device Bank. I'm just going to bring up the National Data Bank here. National Data Bank is run by Good Things Foundation, and people can apply for data through different people based on their locality. Hazel.
Irene, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm not seeing your screen, so I don't know whether that was happening.
I am.
Oh, you are?
You can. Okay, that's fine. Okay, thanks. Thanks anyway, Hazel. Am I showing the National Data Bank, Shona, yeah?
Yep. That's what I'm seeing. But if anyone else is having the same problem with you, they'll let us know.
Oh, Daga said that they can see it too. So the National Data Bank is like a food bank for mobile data. You can either use another organisation in your local area to get data SIMs for people that need it, or you can apply to be a National Data Bank provider yourself as well. It's a really fantastic project. It does give short-term contracts, and sometimes people need to renew, and that can provide challenges, but it is really fantastic, and they've done absolutely brilliant work with that. One of the next challenges is trying to find devices for people. And during the pandemic, there was certainly an influx of devices across third sector, local authority organisations and things like that. We've seen a bit of a slowdown. There is a national device bank, also powered by Good Things Foundation, but they often sort of run low on devices. So I'd encourage everybody to explore. This is Scotland, so I have here examples of device refurbishment projects in Scotland, although we have national partners here like Reuse and IT. Oh, no, I'm not going to click on that one. Reboot, Computer Recycling, and other ones that will distribute sort of more widely. But I'd urge you to sort of consider what refurbishing options you have in your local communities as well. And then also to think about public access spaces. I just realised, again, another typo on that. So apologies for our pubic access spaces. That's not what we mean at all. So public access spaces like libraries and cafes, and what people might be able to do. We're also seeing an increase in NHS spaces and partnerships with public health providers. So once we've got people devices and data, and I know that the team are answering lots of your questions there about social tariffs and about the national data bank. The next thing that we need to do is we need to provide support for people to help them engage online. So a lot of people we know that motivation is a really massive barrier for getting people online. And a lot of people will say, it's not for me, I don't really want to, why would I? And that's quite often because the internet has been done to them. So if you think about a system like universal credit, then where's the motivation to engage with the internet when it looks like universal credit? And when I asked you all to give examples of your favourite apps and websites, nobody mentioned their local authority website because they can pay for their council tax or their school dinners. Most of it is engage with online transactions because they're convenient and they help us, but it's not necessarily, doesn't bring us joy. Although Shona, as an example, said that she enjoys using online banking because it helps her keep control of her life a wee bit more. So it's about empowerment, and we think everyone can be part of that solution. So we ask people to act as digital champions. So if you're in a position where you have a trusted relationship with somebody, a conversational one, then you can be empowering people and giving them little tools that'll make their life a little bit better. And that can be just really widely. So thinking about the people that you're supporting in your different roles, how might the internet help people with their finances? This is a whole group conversation, so we're not firing you into breakout rooms. So I'd love to hear what you all think, and just add it into Mentimeter and it'll appear in front of me. Very concretely, applying for benefits, help with budgeting, absolutely. Access affordable credit, visibility of own finances, pay slips, allows them to access information and support, banking, benefits claims, online shopping to save money, access to support, health and advice, control over bill management, jam jar account savings. The jam jar account savings, I love that you've sort of flagged that up, because that's made a sort of really big difference in how people are able to budget. Peer support, both to manage money well. So communities like Money Saving Expert have a whole community of people helping each other, and it can also be peer support in times of hardship. Altering financial behaviours with new style accounts like POTS, so that's the jam jar type thing as well. Seeking debt advice, referring themselves to welfare rights. These are all exactly the kind of things. So when we're talking about digital inclusion, we're so often talking about that. I'm just going to show you something just now, which is the RBS. Other banks are available. Again, definitely not recommending RBS in particular. But quite often when we're trying to support people around online banking, we get our knickers in a twist about how can I show somebody online banking without showing them my online banking. So most of the banks have banking demo apps, and this is an example of the demo app. You'll see it kind of coming up, and it shows all the functionality of the app, and you can skip around in it. And as a couple of people have said on the call, it used to be a lot of financial support, and budgeting in particular would require people being supported to have, like, say, a budgeting spreadsheet or a budgeting bit of paper, where they had to write down the budgeting bit of paper and then match it to their bank statement. Online banking gives us greater control over those budgets, and it has lovely sections here on budgets. It can help people see how much they're spending here. We had an example, we supported a charity supporting people experiencing homelessness. And as you can imagine, if somebody's in homelessness or at risk of homelessness, £10 it barely goes anywhere, and that can be all a person has to survive. And the person we were supporting was claiming 4 food parcels a month, so one every week, getting a food parcel. And we helped him with his online banking through his banking app, and it changed completely. And he was able to reverse that situation just by seeing what he had and being able to use that and make his money sort of stretch out that a little bit, because he just felt that little bit more in control. So banking demo apps are sort of really integral to all of that. So it can help. What the sort of things that we know that can help people is having and managing an email address. So at that very first starting point, do people have the ability to manage an email address? Do they even have one? Do they have the skills and access to apply for online banking systems and then be able to use it? I just sort of demonstrated a banking app. Skills to seek out and access cheaper deals and services, and there's lots of little tools that you can do now. So an example being that you can, for online shopping, you can use those kind of voucher finders. There's lots of voucher finder tools now to help people find those sort of discount services, as well as comparing energy providers. Some of the housing associations now ask people to evidence that they have compared prices for their fuel. So it's about really handing over those skills to people, and access to education. around that access to that support. So what are the challenges related to supporting people in managing their money and finances? What challenges do you see on the ground when you're thinking about, providing digital support? What things do people find hard, or what do you see? And again, feel free to add yourself into the thing. Deb, you've got your hands up.
Yeah, I was talking in the small group. I work out in the community in deprived areas, and I'm a money advisor and debt advisor. So to get people to even access the UC payment statement, to get our current welfare provision scheme, and the council want bank statements, ID, all these things that they just can't send me or can't do. So I have to do a lot of home visiting just to scrabble around just to get things sometimes to help them. But it's really hard because I have people with English not their first language, illiteracy, and they're saying that they're all moving over now to universal credit, or the really vulnerable people in the support group are moving over, and there's no support for them apart from me.
Thanks for sharing that, Deb. And I think it's important that if we're walking alongside people that are impacted in this way, that we also start becoming part of the solution by sort of saying to those organisations that are making these referrals or making these requirements, going, how are you helping then? What are you doing? So just introducing a digital system and expecting everybody to use it is absolutely unequal. We've got communication with languages are still an issue for those where English is not their first language. And I quite often at this point, I'm going to bring up an app called Learn My Way, which is a really helpful space that can help people with low levels of digital skills develop the digital skills that they need. You can see as well, they've got a really lovely section on managing your money online. I'm also just going to show you as well how I'm going to translate this. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Just by I'm going to translate the whole page into Arabic. I always like translating into Arabic. I'm doing it all quite slowly so that you can see. Being comfortable yourself with these kinds of translation tools really, again, can help you overcome that. I would say that translation tools should never be used for legal advice. They can also lead to miscommunications, but they can help a little bit. I've seen Helen jump in with her hands up. What were you going to say, Helen?
Pretty much what you were just about to say, that I think it's great. I was going to actually put that into the comment I made. Communication and language, some of the tools that we see online, they're trying to tackle this by doing this, which is great, but we can't rely on it because you said, not everybody. But the other thing is, even though the person might speak that language, they might not be able to read it. And there's a big assumption. There's a big assumption that people, that people can be literate, and they're not, and that's a big problem to access stuff on. And also some people need a person in English to be able to get it to do what you just did. So sometimes they actually need somebody to do that. So that's where there's a lot of stuff still, a lot of work needs to be done on these things. So just wanted to point that out.
So all great and just part of a package, I guess, of some solutions that might work. I'm just thinking there, when I'm thinking about the literacy there, I've never tried the read out loud in a translate page. I don't know if that works. I'm probably just testing your skills. But you can get your device to read the web page aloud. Would it do the same if you translated it into a different language? I don't know.
I think some of them do. I'm not going to do that as a live demo just now, because what I've found in the past is when I'm using those read aloud functions, they come into my headphones but don't go onto the Zoom presentation, Shona. It's not about there's a one size fits all for any of this, and I would err on the side of caution about using translation tools, but they can help. They can be part of a suite of helping people, and a lot of frontline staff don't even know they can do that to sort of break the ice a little bit. Another tool, because Helen's insight there about the link between literacy and digital literacy, that comes up all the time in practice, that a lot of people may never have had the opportunity to read, but may also have additional challenges to reading, like dyslexia and things like that. So the more comfortable that all of us feel with demonstrating little things like just the microphone button and showing how the internet can be unlocked by voice, that can really help people. But a lot of people don't even think, if you're lucky enough to have literacy, then you're so used to typing that you don't think about demonstrating. But the demonstrating opens up the potential of that. Other things that can really help people with additional support needs can be increasing the font size. It can be changing the colour of the background of a screen. These kind of things can help. But then again, there isn't a one size fits all here. But Helen's insights there around literacy and language are essential. But I think the more comfortable all of us feel in showcasing some of these everyday tools, the more we get used to them. The language tools are also evolving a lot as AI and large language models develop as well. That can be really helpful as well. So I already showed you there. What did I just show there? We've covered the device bank. I just showed Learn My Way, which is a space that can be really helpful for you thinking about how does all this fit in terms of all these different categories. It walks through things in a very helpful way. So if you're new to thinking about digital inclusion and about helping others with their digital skills, then this can be really helpful. It does do it all in quite a logical way, which can be quite useful. But actually, what we also know is that while linear learning can be really helpful for a lot of people, a lot of folk want to just learn the digital skills that they need just now in the context that they find themselves. So they don't necessarily want to go to a course in the library. They just want a hand with one particular thing, and that can be the start of their journey. So we would encourage everybody on the call to see or reflect on how they could be a part of a journey, but not delivering a digital skills course. I've already covered that one. And I also wanted to bring up as an example, again, not another one, that other banks are available. Barclays is here, and they have digital wings here, which combines digital and financial literacy there. So it can be a good one as well for you to think about how those two things might set alongside each other, and think about, oh, I could embed little bits of that. It can also be really helpful for people to go through themselves, because as you guys will know better than I do, people talking about their money is an incredibly private and intense thing, and a lot of people don't want to disclose what they are struggling with. So it's about how can we actually empower people to do that. And there's other examples there that the team will share. I am also going to bring up some of the other services here. We've got Citizens Advice Scotland has their money map as an example. I realise we've got folk on the call from, well, it's very international in a British kind of way. So I know that Citizens Advice Scotland won't necessarily be applicable for everyone, but Citizens Advice in general has lots of information and support. But you can see here that they're breaking it down in different categories. And then we've also got Turn to Us, which if you're not familiar with, is a really essential service for people, especially people that are at risk of poverty. So it's thinking about how we provide support there. Although I think at the start of the call, there was, I think somebody from Turn to Us had maybe been on this morning, sort of introducing that. And now we're going to get into some of your fears and anxieties around support. And so what we're asking, I guess, is that everybody is a little bit part of a digital solution for people. And I'm interested in what are your biggest concerns around supporting people with digital and financial inclusion? What is it that worries you a little bit about this space? Or what are the things that you think people would struggle with the most? the sort of biggest sort of safety, security, those kind of fears. I wish I could read the chat panel. I can see that there's tons of great stuff happening in the chat panel as well as in front of me, but I can't multitask to that level. But I know that Shona and the guys are sort of sharing away. It's exciting, Shona. Nice busy call.
On my toes.
Somebody has touched on the elephant in the room, which is how on earth can we do this alongside everything else that we're being asked to do? It is really difficult, and we've seen straitened circumstances. We're seeing people in the sharp end of poverty being squeezed every direction. So we are aware that we are asking a lot, which is that you're considering digital on top of what you do. But what we hope, and also what we know, is that by empowering people, we have all these lovely examples we could give you from practice of if somebody is given digital tools, then the stuff that they can do to sort out their own problems are really, it's really amazing. So there's lots there. Some of the concern here being perceived as giving advice when I'm not a licensed financial advisor. That's, I can imagine that that's really stressful as well. Scaling to get to more people. If people don't safe or don't want to access information digitally, we can't make them. I would like to touch on this one in particular. And I can't be clearer that the role of Mhor Collective is never to remove choice from people. It's never our intention to force people into digital. And actually, if anything, we hope to be critical all the time of any implementation of a system that requires everyone to engage with it digitally. But sometimes one of the reasons that people don't engage digitally is that they're scared, that it's overwhelming, that they don't feel confident, and also in the situations that we're talking about today, that too much is at stake. If you know that you're going to make a mistake, or you're worried about making a mistake in your application for universal credit, and then that's going to mean that you and your kids are out on the street, I am certainly going to go time and time again and ask Shona to do my universal credit form. So we had lots of situations in our work where, again, drawn in our work with people supporting homelessness, where frontline members of staff would say, do you know, I've tried time and again with this person with their universal credit. They come in here week after week, they ask me the same things, and they never remember, they're never going to get the internet. But actually, what we found was that coming into a busy hub or a library where you only have a device for an hour at a time, there's no dignity in that. There's a lot of stress in that situation. It's very difficult to consolidate your skills or remember stuff when you go away and have to come back. So if we can provide that sort of space for people, and ideally with device and data, that means that they can learn in the comfort of their own home, a wee bit at a time, in a way that's meaningful for them. And another thing is a wee sort of tip, is if you can add the Universal Credit homepage to somebody's home screen on their phone, rather than saying start with Google and get yourself to Universal Credit. If we can do it that way, it increases the chances of them getting to the right place. So if you type in Universal Credit, my homepage or whatever to Google, or use voice to find it, the chances of you actually accessing your login page are probably pretty low. Whereas if you add it to somebody's home screen, it can make a difference. So we're not trying to force people digitally. We're trying to understand what are their barriers and what are their challenges. A lot of it is around these things, around fraud, exploitation, around staying safe. And we need to have the language to talk to people, to say, I understand, I hear you, I know why you're scared, me too. Because if there's anybody on the call that isn't worried about fraud, that isn't worried about data privacy and security, a little bit we should be. We should all be critical. We should all be thinking about that. But we should also all be confident in exploring the tools that are there to help us stay safer online Notice that I never say stay safe online, because I feel that's like an unachievable dream. So we just want to keep developing our skills. So here is an example of a staying safer tool. We've got Get Safe Online, a very trusted resource. Look, for our Welsh colleagues on the call, you can translate it beautifully into Welsh. So there's lots of information. It's kept very up to date with new risks, and it'll take you into information around spam and fake emails and things like that, with lots of advice and support there for you. I also wanted to sort of signpost you into Internet Matters specifically. Internet Matters is aimed at parents and carers primarily, and has lots of issues here. You can see here, but it's also written for 14 plus. So I am absolutely convinced that if something's written for a 14-year-old, it is dead on the money for me. So it's worth sort of knowing about that as well. I also wanted to flag up, Shauna's going to go, oh, we haven't seen this for a little while, is My Lead Scotland. It is Scottish. Again, you're going to get that a lot on these calls from us. It is Scottish, but it has easy read information on a range of issues. You don't have to be Scottish, by the way, to use this Scottish website. You can be from anywhere in the UK. But it has lots of information written in a very accessible, easy read way. And there's lots of information here for you around staying safe and what you might want to do. So let's see, I think I've covered quite a few of these. I'm trying to think. Oh no, there's one that I've missed out. The most common concerns that people really have are around those frauds and scams. So we want to help people feel safe around that. We want to be able to talk about privacy and what that can look like and what that can feel like, and what tools we can use to protect our own privacy. I would suggest that everybody on the call starts with their, oh no, I was going to do it live, but I'm not going to. Start with your own Google privacy checker. If you haven't done that for a while, it's worth exploring that. And I know quite often when we're talking about privacy and security, everybody has it in the back of their heads, like a bad vibe for themselves, where they go, I know I should have. She's telling me to do my Google privacy checkup. But it doesn't take long anymore. The language has been simplified. If you haven't done it for ages, just do it. And then you'll feel a bit more confident helping others. The other thing that we are seeing all the time is an increase in misinformation. For misinformation, Google, and this is a relatively new tool, it's about 3 or 4 months old now, is the Google fact checking tool. And you can just search facts for information about a topic or a person, and it'll search up, and you can see here that it also sort of gives you information about whether it is true or false, and gives you greater information on it. So if you don't know about Google Fact Check, then it's worth knowing about it. You've also got, in the UK, you've got fullfact.org as well as another one, but the Google Fact Check is just that little bit broader. Yes, so, and again, coming back into that sort of wider inequalities and what all this can look like, the wider impact of financial exclusion is, it's never just about the money, is it? It's the impact that having no money has on everything. It has an impact on every single aspect of our life. It has impact on our mental and physical health and well-being. It has impact on social isolation. We're more likely to increase how socially isolated we are if we're struggling financially, and vice versa. Both things go together. Can lead us into housing issues with addiction, can lead to longer term unemployment. So it really is about so much more than just the money. And also simultaneously, digital feeds into all of these. So for each of these categories, if we can help people with these categories as well, we're also going to increase their financial resilience. If they're feeling safe and well and stronger in themselves, they're more likely to be able to also be mentally able to cope with their finances as well. But I realise it's an awful circle. That's why when we are thinking about digital inclusion, we're thinking about everyday tools like WhatsApp. Can the person use WhatsApp? Because WhatsApp will connect us into family, friends, and loved ones. WhatsApp can also connect us into communities of support. It can connect us into if you're in addiction or recovering from addiction, it can connect you into peer supporters and things like that. So WhatsApp's this everyday tool that really has the potential to do so much. So when you're thinking about how do I help a person, it's okay to start with WhatsApp. You don't need to crack straight into money type stuff. You're giving them a skill there. So it's about how do we help. I wanted to sort of also flag up the importance of including NHS in the work that you're doing. I'm going to give an example here. I'm going to show you NHS Inform. Again, sorry, not sorry about the Scottishness of the session. But NHS Inform now, if we add this to somebody's home screen, they're more likely to access the NHS rather than Google for a health condition. That seems obvious, and yet very few of us have NHS on our home screen. So most of us will start with Google for a health condition. Actually, we found again, when we were supporting people experiencing homelessness, if we added NHS Inform to their homepage, they were more likely to access NHS Inform. And NHS Inform has so much more on it than just health stuff. It sees the intersectional nature of our life. So this is on their mental well-being. So they have a whole section on mental well-being. And in that section on mental well-being, it recommends apps and websites that can help people who are experiencing issues with their mental health. And this is, I brought it into problem gambling to show as well a little bit what I mean. Sorry, I'm choking away here. There's too much writing on here. Helen identified earlier people with literacy. And again, people with literacy issues are more likely to be facing health inequalities as well. These things are all flipping tied up. And yet here we have our NHS site, which, you know, I would suggest isn't exactly friendly to those of us who do have literacy issues. But there you go. There is an accessibility button at the top. But why I'm flagging this particular site, this bit of the website up, is to show you here. GamStop is here, and I can click on this link and it takes me out to GamStop. GamStop is an online self-exclusion tool. So if you have a problem with gambling, online gambling is very likely to be part of that journey. And if you Google, how do I stop gambling on Google, you're probably likely to end up in a whole bunch of more gambling websites saying, oh yeah, you should stop, but please gamble more. You should stop, but please gamble more. GamStop puts a blocker on your search engine to stop you accessing. So it's like a self-control type tool. How do I know this is safe? How do I know this is not a scam? It's because the NHS has told me. It's in one of their recommended apps and websites. Similarly with GamCare here as well. So one of the problems that all of us have is, how can I know what app or website to recommend? Because just looking on Google Play Store or just using Google, that isn't enough. That's not due diligence, really. That's not really thinking about keeping people safe. So it's about going to trusted services to get the app or website that is most relevant. So GamCare is also being recommended by NHS Inform. The other thing that's really lovely on NHS Inform is they see how all this is tied up. So they also have a section on coping with money worries and what that looks like, because they see that that is part of somebody's mental health. And it takes you into wider tools, apps, websites that can help you manage your mental health. So some of the tools I showed you earlier were really about how do we help people manage their money and what sort of tools might help. But if somebody is having issues managing their money, they're very likely to be dealing with anxiety. They're going to be worried about handling stress. So it's how do we help them find safe sources of online information for all of that to. And I think I've covered a lot of these, but it's just about thinking about what are the practical apps and websites that can help people. We've talked a little bit about budgeting and how that is better done in a banking app if someone has access to a banking app. People can get better deals online using comparison sites. There's websites like Money Saving Expert, and I'm coming up with a screen in a minute where I ask what your top tips and websites are. But there's so much out there that can really help people make more of what they have. And I've covered this, which is this idea of bookmarking and adding to your own screen. I think I'm going to come back to that. And I'd really like to ask now, I guess, have you got any top tips, best practice, apps or websites that you might like to share? What would be your sort of top recommendations in terms of apps or websites or best practice? And this will be a really nice opportunity for everybody in the group to see everyone else's wisdom. You can add it in the chat panel if you've not managed to get into Menti, and either Shona or Shona can shout out ones in the chat panel or whatever. So we've got Money Saver UK coming right in there. Chase app, because you get 1% cash back on everything. So there's a lot of these great cashback apps that are really, really helpful. Surviving Economic Abuse, the Rights of Women for Legal Advice. There's an awful lot of, if whoever put the Surviving Economic Abuse, I know that, is that Helen? Was that you, Helen? I can't remember. There's somebody on the call. There's an organisation that we've worked with that has done outstanding work in terms of surviving economic abuse. And whoever has written that, I know that there's very specific tools and suggestions that can be made for helping women in the digital space with regards to surviving economic abuse. There's obviously lots that we can do on a separate call to support survivors of abuse, but if anybody's got a link for specific economic abuse, that would be really helpful. CPAG Online, information is class. Good choice for CPAG. That is one actually I should have brought up as well. If the person that put CPAG Online can pop that into the channel as well. Cashback, business WhatsApp, set up a password manager. Good top tip. 10 points for that person. So Google Chrome has a password manager built in. So a lot of the people that we're supporting, it's really difficult to remember a different password for every website that you use, every form that you fill in. But password managers really can make a difference. And things like Google Chrome will create a unique password each time for every website you visit. It'll be a super secure one. The only thing that you have to remember is your own Google account password. But it's just to kind of reassure people that the Google Chrome password manager is a safe passwords management tool. I used to think, it feels unsafe somehow because it's googly. It doesn't feel safe, but it is. So a lot of people have those tools at their disposal, but don't necessarily use them. Look at this. This is a great top tip as well. Add dates to calendar or reminders for bill payments so that their phone alerts them when that's due. It's a tiny little tip, but such a perfect one, because we know that people, especially as debt mounts up, they find it increasingly difficult to keep track of payments. So setting those reminders is a really great suggestion there as well. Cashback, Google Image Reverse to find deals that you're looking for. Leaving things in your basket to see if you get a discount. That's a nice one as well. Using the Authenticator app, which it can be quite challenging, I would say, that Authenticator app. So that can also be a little bit of a challenge for some people. So helping people feel comfortable with that. I'm going to flag off this one. This is follow Be Clever with Your Cash. I don't know that channel. I am taking that person's recommendation as a stand-up recommendation. The one thing I would say though is helping people with YouTube is an unbelievably fantastic thing to be able to do. So we've sort of shown people how to use YouTube in all manners of situations, right? We usually show them how to use YouTube to listen to music, for instance, follow their favorite bands. So we show them how to use YouTube from a place of joy. And then what we find is people transferring that knowledge in so many different ways. So I once saw a guy fill in a universal credit form while watching a video of how to fill in a universal credit form on YouTube. Again, nobody suggested he do that. He just looked on YouTube and that helped him fill it out. Might not be ideal, the information might be out of date, whatever, but it is a really helpful starting point. We also had an example of somebody in the situation of an overdose administering naloxone at point of use to save somebody's life by using a YouTube video about how to administer naloxone. So you can help people with these everyday tools, and then how they transfer it is absolutely mind-blowing. For those of you that are interested, Sharon has put in the chat panel, and I would urge everyone to be interested. Sharon's put into the chat panel information about surviving economic abuse and the digital elements of that and what you can think about. So I guess there's so much here and lots of great advice and recommendations. Another good YouTube channel, Humble Penny. Reddit sub-communities such as Our Budget for tips and advice. And those can be helpful for you as practitioners as well as the people that you are supporting. So lots of great ideas and best practice to share. We're kind of at the end of our session now. It's been a whistle-stop tour. It's been a really big call as well. There's lots of you on the call, which is really nice. And we've taken away some of the additional elements of the presentation because unfortunately we've got to keep you all under control. Normally, like we would have everybody chit-chat and then interrupt them, but because it's such a big call, we haven't. I wondered if anybody's got any questions they'd like to ask or anything they'd like to share with the group. You can either add it in the Zoom chat panel or stick your hand up because we've got a wee bit of time towards the end of the session.
It's not so much a question, but I'm just going to jump in and really eager to know what everyone's kind of top number one takeaway from the session, because if you're like me, you've just been absolutely fantastically overwhelmed in a great way about how many resources are out there, and just even thinking, going back to basics, thinking about things like creating email addresses or the examples you've used, Irene, introducing YouTube. There's just so many little ways we can creep in and help someone digitally. I'd be really eager to know if anyone wants to put it in the chat. What is your top takeaway? If you could only name one, because I know there'll be plenty. What is it? Because that was so much information, but in such a great way. It's really, really eye-opening.
Thank you, Heather. It's like great minds think alike there, Heather, because I've got a little slide there, which is what is your main takeaway from today? The resources, I'm always aware, all of us at Mhor Collective are aware that we always share resources during the session. They aren't just random ones that we've picked off the internet. They're ones that are being used in communities, and they are usually research informed and everything else. So even though it might feel like, oh God, they've just chucked a bunch of resources, they're ones that should be useful to everybody.
I think there was a wee
resource
question
yeah.
there, sorry to jump in, Irene,
Okay.
from the very dedicated Charlotte. I believe it's the same Charlotte. She was asking, how about older people? My mum refuses to engage with digital processes or learn and so relies on my sister. I suppose, do you have any words of advice to help people encourage others?
I've just typed a response to you there, Charlotte, and it's a really tough one. I think the older adults, and I'm sort of thinking of the likes of my granny, who is very able and capable but has no desire to do anything digital, no motivation, no real understanding. So I think, just like you said, it's like if they don't want to and they see no benefit in it, it's really tough. There's lots of resources, like Irene's just brought up Age UK, that there's lots of resources out there, but I think your first hurdle or barrier is going to be that motivation. How do we engage her interest? So I suggested, I don't know, does she have any hobbies offline that you could think about bringing a little bit of joy online, whether it's like craft patterns, knitting patterns, videos. Reminiscence is usually really good with older adults, music, and being able to look at YouTube videos, maybe of places she used to live or music she used to like or things she used to do when she was younger herself, just to spark that little bit of interest and joy. But it is hard if there's no desire or interest there. But that would be mine, is go with what she enjoys offline and see if you can bring that to the digital world somehow. Irene, have you got better advice?
No, I don't have better advice. I think the sort of really everyday things. So a lot of older adults feel really excluded online because quite often the internet has been done to them. They might have had a really helpful, well-meaning teenager set up their device, done that at 100 million miles an hour, and not necessarily made the space and time to go through it kind of really slowly. And for me, some of the tips that will help is as well clearing up the clutter on a person's home screen, increasing the size of the apps, increasing the font size, and just doing one thing at a time. So a lot of older adults will be encouraged online by communicating and connecting with family and friends, like a WhatsApp group chat, and that kind of thing. Hazel, I can see that you're waving wildly.
Yes, I've got a learner with a different hat on who is 83 years old, and we've just got her completely hooked on a refurbished Chromebook to researching her family tree, and that's done the trick for her.
Yeah, and that ties it back into, it's the motivation. Why should I use this? I've managed to get to the grand old age of 83 without doing it. Why should I do it now? So it really is about finding that and then stripping it down to that one thing. And also older adults, and I am starting to class myself as that very much, it's harder to retain stuff. It's harder to sort of build up those skills and keep them going. So it's about how do we, and resources like the Age UK things, the messaging is targeted there. So the language is being used within that community, and older adults are feeling more comfortable, more reassured by that. So it's about thinking, how do we just break it down and do, but it's not easy. It's not easy. I'm not saying for a minute, oh, it's easy. I would also say that another top tip is trying not to help your own parents. Getting somebody else to help your own parents if you can draft in. I used to do lots and lots of stuff in the community context. And we'd quite often have older couples turn up to sessions that we were delivering in real life. And one of the first things I did was split those guys up. Like, because you'd always have one that was trying to be in charge of the digital world and the other one that was going, oh, I'm useless. And then they became a little sort of toxic couple. So I used to do a lot of separating people out. And similarly, if I had sort of a parent and child, I'd be trying to sort of, it's hard to help your own mum. Maybe that's just my mum. Anything else? What else are we seeing here? Any other questions, really? It's nice to see everybody's main takeaways there, but any other questions? Again, take yourself off mute if you've got anything. Oh, somebody's saying they feel quite reassured. And I think it's about that idea of you don't have to be in charge of somebody's whole digital journey. It's just about walking alongside them on a little bit of the way. And it can absolutely change people's lives. It can turn around their financial well-being. Like, it really can. And we have such incredible examples of people who it really can make a difference. I think what I'll do is I'll probably finish with, we had an example of a person that we supported through some of the work that we did with Simon Community Scotland. And he had been in jail for quite a long time, and in jail had very little support around digital access. Tends to be heavily restricted. People don't don't have access to that. So you imagine yourself coming out of jail, right? How are you going to get a job? Like how are you going to keep a roof over your head? How are you going to recover? How are you going to meaningfully contribute to society? And when he was coming out of jail, he had a support worker from Simon community, just this guy called Kevin, salt of the earth. I'm not going to anonymize Kevin because he's one of the best people on the planet. And he was providing support to this guy. And when he'd been in prison, all he could think about was how important it was for him to try and fix things with his son. He'd been quite, when he'd ended up in jail, a lot of stuff had fallen apart. His mental health had taken a kick in, all of the things. So Kevin sort of supported him, and while he was in jail as well, the only thing he could think about was, I just wish I could sit down and have a meal with my son. I wish I could fix things. I wish I could do that. So he had this lovely holistic support from Kevin about all manners of things. But one of the things that Kevin did was got him a device and data and showed him how to use the internet in a way that was helpful to him. So he had time, and I know that some of you don't have time for all of this, I get it, but Kevin did, and he had time. And he supported him with YouTube, and he supported him with WhatsApp, just those two tools. And with WhatsApp, this guy was able to build up his relationship with his son. A little bit at a time, often. He was able to be present in a way that he'd quite often let his son down in the past, and was able to do this, just be there, until his son was starting to engage more and more. And the guy also taught himself how to cook on YouTube. So he used YouTube videos to help himself cook. And any of you that know about this sort of context of poverty and hardship know that self-confidence is so part of it all. Like if we don't have any confidence, if we don't have any belief, if we've taken a kicking from our lives, then everything else falls apart as well. And so he learned how to cook. And the story had this unbelievable happy ending of he had that meal with his son, he made that meal for his son, and he regularly made meals for his son every Sunday. But that starting point at digital was weirdly the connector for all of it. That was the bit that brought them back together again, that gave him the confidence, that helped him develop his skills. And he did go on into a job. Those things all came true for him. But it was with these tiny little starting points. So when I am so delighted that somebody's takeaway is, I'm quite reassured. I sometimes think, what else could I be doing? But it's okay if what you're doing is introducing WhatsApp. It is okay if what you're doing is showing somebody YouTube, because that is a starting point, and it can be a starting point and an unlock for who knows what. So thank you very much, all of you, for giving up your time today. We've got some feedback for you on Mentimeter if you're able to access it. If any of you are from organisations that would be interested in working with us in different contexts or specific contexts to hone in on aspects of digital inclusion or digital inequality, please do get in touch with us. We feel very lucky to be working in this space, unlucky, however, that we are needed. We're grateful for your time today, and thanks very much. And enjoy the rest of your money workshops and all the other stuff you've got going on.
Thank you so much, Irene, Shona, Hazel, everyone at Mhor Collective. Such a fantastic, informative session. Folks will get resources, links, everything sent out to you as soon as possible, including a feedback forms, because we like to know how things are doing and how to shape future events. A big round of applause. That has just totally put a pep in my step for today. Thank you so much. Folks, just 1 minute before you head off, I would just like to take this opportunity just to ask you all to reflect on a few things you're learning, but also reflect on yourselves this week during Talk Money Week. I'm not going to put my face on camera because I think my bandwidth is really low, so apologies for the earlier technical difficulties. But what I wanted to ask you all to do is just take a moment to reflect on the work that you do, you know, the contributions that you're making to individuals and communities all across the UK. You do phenomenal work, so please take a moment to celebrate yourself and congratulate yourself and keep yourself motivated motivated, because without you, there's so many countless people who wouldn't be in the positions that they are. And I know there's a lot of people still left to help, but please, you know, give yourself the credit where it's due. You work hard. Please celebrate yourselves during Top Money Week, and every other week of the year. You do phenomenal, folks. So please take good care of yourselves and enjoy the rest of Top Money Week and Conference Week. Bye for now, folks.